Hey everybody, this is Paul. Thank you for checking out my channel. So today I wanted to give an update on Linux from scratch and on switching to Garuda. I have thoughts on both those and I want to discuss that. So the first one, Linux from scratch. I had originally planned on installing Linux from scratch on camera. I thought I could do it over, the weekend or something like that. And the reality is, the amount of reading I did installing it, the amount of tertiary material I kept checking out, and just fixing some problems along the way, and sometimes thinking I fixed a problem, but causing a problem and going back and doing it another way. It turned out that it took me all of Saturday and all of Sunday. And then Monday morning, I was finally able to get the system to boot. So I don't really have any video there. And the other part about that is I installed it on bare metal. So I can't really record because I don't have a video capture device. I can't intercept and capture video from a computer. I'll have to pick up one of those apparently, especially if I'm going to do a tech channel. So in the meantime, what I thought we would do is we would go through the installation together, but we'll do it in a virtual environment. So I'm thinking we'll just grab a live ISO or something, and instead of installing that thing, we'll walk through the LFS installation on that device. And hopefully we won't have to do any reading together. I've already done that. I kind of understand a lot of things that are happening now during the installation process, like the fact that you're building GCC on your system for another system, and so you're doing this whole interesting compilation time chain where you install GCC, where you build it and install it 3 times total during the process. The first time you build GCC is to build GCC for the new system, and then once you build GCC for the new system and you root into that environment, you can build it correctly for that system with more features enabled. So it was a very interesting process. The kernel, installing the kernel was very interesting, and I'm really excited to go over that with you. So I will start that video soon. I think it's just going to have to be a mini part series where we partition the disks and we maybe do that first cross compilation chain, and then we get to the root part and we do stuff in there, and then there's 73 steps in building all the software once you have your stuff set up. So it's a lengthy process, and we'll go over it together. But I do want to say that I'm having a ton of fun. I'm learning a lot about Linux, and now I'm learning a lot about command line that I thought I knew a lot, but I'm learning a lot more. So I'm really excited for this. I'm having way more fun than I thought I would be with Linux from scratch. On another note, I did want to show one thing real quick. So here we can just see I basically the thing I wanted to highlight was these 2 things right here. So one of the cool things about Linux from scratch is that you can just kind of tar up the whole thing and just archive it. And it's, in theory, as long as it's on the same system, you could just untar that and have your working system. So it's a nice little way to archive what's going on. So my total install right now is 2.9 gig, and that's rather, heavy probably. Certainly if you read their documentation, there are people with a much smaller install size. And then my base packages. So this base packages is all the stuff from the Linux from scratch handbook. I did things in a non-standard way, so I I had to install some UEFI stuff. That meant a lot of monkeying around with the kernel to get that stuff all working. And then I have it running on from the same bootloader as my Garuda system right now. So Garuda Grub detects it and launches it. And I did install Grub in the Linux from scratch, and I even ran through the Grub commands. But I don't want to manually create entries for Garuda or whatever else, so I just let Garuda manage that, and that's a little bit easier, at least for the time being. Maybe that'll change in the future. And then another note is this base packages. Oh, right. So that's what I was talking about. So in addition to the Linux from scratch stuff, I installed a few things that are not part of the base install. Things like wget and links, both LYNX and LYNKS. Two text-based web browsers. I'm having a lot more success with KS rather than YX. I don't know why. Links is the YX one is I'm just having a hard time with. It seems like it has some potential to be better overall, but I'm not enjoying my experience with it so far. So that's the Linux from scratch update, and I realize now that this is probably a lot longer than I had really intended, but I do want to just give a brief update on Garuda as well. I installed Garuda because well, I needed to switch from Fedora. I was just having a bunch of little problems in Fedora. Things weren't working right. Kdenlive was crashing the entire system. Just different things. Well, I installed Garuda, and not only does Kdenlive work wonderfully, OBS is working great. I'm having just way less problems with some of this software in this Arch ecosystem. Also, Virt Manager, like when I run Looking Glass and I have my Windows virtual machine up and it's full screen, in Fedora, all the time, keys would not go through Windows and back to Fedora. Whereas when I'm running Windows in full screen in Garuda, I have no problems switching my desktop to another desktop. I have no problems coming out of full screen mode. Granted, Looking Glass itself, you can press and hold scroll lock, which I did end up mapping onto my keyboard so that I can use that feature. And you can full screen and unfull screen that way, and that works really well. But there's just, things are just working better in Arch overall. So that brings me to the spot where I kind of had a little bit of maybe regret that I installed Garuda. And more and more, I guess I'm just coming to the opinion that if you're going to run Arch, run Arch. If you're going to run Debian, run Debian. That's these different things Garuda Mint. What they give you is they give you some nice stuff. So I don't regret installing Garuda because, for one, they have a really nice Dunst config. It works really well. And I'm going to steal that when I, change my system again. And just some other stuff like that. So there's some really nice configuration files that you can get from these different flavors of operating systems. So in that respect, I think they're really great. But, I have Qtile installed now with a bunch of software that the Garuda guys install. And I don't know that I really want that. So I probably will change to just vanilla Arch here, maybe this week, maybe next week. And I'll just keep some of the different nice configuration files around. I'm also debating whether I just go back to ZSH from Fish. I've been running Zeesh. I ran Zeesh for years, and I like Fish, but there's just some things with Zeesh that were nice, specifically package management, and like Fish has some of that stuff. But anyways, that's off topic. That's not about Garuda. And so I just wanted to briefly mention some of those things as well. So kind of give you an idea of where I'm at in my Linux journey and where I'm going. And really, one of the things I'm most excited about is getting the Linux from scratch a little bit more. Like I said, I installed those web browsers and stuff and wget, which are not part of the base install, so that I can boot into that system and use it. I can open up different terminals and swap between them and have different stuff up. I even installed Tmux. I'm having some issues with it, and I think that's probably it doesn't have enough support. Like, it's probably relying on libraries that aren't there. It installs and it runs, but there's other wonkiness, like running man pages inside of it just was causing lots of problems where the video wasn't refreshing right. It wasn't displaying correctly. So, and I really wish I could show some of these things, and maybe, you know, like I said, we'll do the install together. We'll do it in a virtual machine. It's going to create its own problems, especially when it comes time to build the kernel together. But hopefully we'll get that up and running, and then we'll just be able to use that together and build it. And I'm not sure whether we should use sysv or systemd. We'll probably use sysv. I'm thinking for mine, ultimately I will end up switching to systemd, just because so much software when you build an actual desktop relies on systemd, and I would like to get it into a fully functional desktop state. Whether I use it over Arch in the long run, who knows, but I'm going to learn a ton along the way. So I appreciate you all for watching. I hope you enjoy this journey with me. Thank you for watching.